In the middle of the night, 32-year-old Martin was home alone. When his phone rang, it was exactly 2:33 a.m. The number wasn't saved, but something inside him told him he had to answer. Do you know what was strange? When he picked up, the voice on the other end was his own. But the moment he heard himself speaking, his whole body froze. Because the other Martin was whispering in panic, "If you ever find that diary, do not read it. No matter what you do not open the first page. Can you hear me? Turn back right now. I'm out of time." And then the screams. His own voice was screaming. Martin reflexively hung up the phone, but his hands were trembling. The logical part of his brain told him this was nonsense, but the fear he felt was all too real. The next day, Martin went back to his old house to collect his last belongings before moving out. The house had been built in the 1890s, a long-abandoned building. No one had lived there for years, but something felt off. The house was colder than usual. The curtains were drawn, yet the inside was unnaturally dark. When he opened the door, a heavy, stale odor seeped out from within. But the strangest part, he was never supposed to find that diary. Martin spotted an old notebook wedged under his desk. Dusty, dirty, tattered. But the most terrifying detail was its cover. Do not read. He could feel the weight of it in his hands. A voice inside him screamed to leave immediately, but another voice whispered, urging him to open it, and so he did. If you're reading these words, it's too late. They've noticed you. Martin flinched for a moment. It had to be a joke, right? But then he saw what was written beneath the text, his own name. "Martin, why are you here?" His eyes widened. This was impossible. How could this have been written? At that very moment, the wind outside suddenly stopped. The silence inside the house became so overwhelming that his ears began to ring. And then he heard a whisper from above. "Can you hear us?" Martin slowly lifted his head. Black liquid was dripping from between the wooden planks of the ceiling. But the most terrifying part, as his eyes followed the dripping liquid to its source, he saw a shadowy figure hanging upside down from the ceiling. I'd had nitrogen monoxide eyes, but I too was looking at him. Martin stumbled backward, gasping for breath. But something was wrong. He reached into his pocket to check his phone. But his phone wasn't there, and then he realized it. He was holding the diary, but now its cover was older, torn, and covered in strange markings. And there was a new sentence written on it. "It's your turn now, Martin." At that moment, the door upstairs slowly creaked open, and a whisper followed. "He's back." Martin is now beginning to question the reality he's trapped in. What is happening? How does the diary know his name? Who is the figure on the ceiling? Most importantly, what is written on the missing pages? Don't miss chapter 2 for the answers.